I hate my adopted sister. I remember the exact day she moved in. It was a Wednesday, grey and heavy, like the sky knew what was about to happen. I was 15, awkward, studious, and desperate to be seen. My parents had been talking about adoption for months, but it always felt like a fantasy, like one of those projects they'd obsess over and then forget. But then one morning, they said she was coming. Today. That was all the warning I got. No family meeting, no chance to prepare. Her name was Lena. She was 14, a year younger than me, but taller, thinner, and had this haunting, hollow look in her eyes that made me uncomfortable from the moment I saw her step out of the social worker's car. My mom called it trauma. My dad called it resilience. I didn't know what to call it. All I knew was that everything changed the moment she stepped through our front door. At first I tried. God, did I try. I thought maybe we could be close, sisters even. I gave her my old notebooks, showed her around the school, even let her use my computer. I told her about my friends, my science club, the honors classes I worked so hard for. I thought maybe if I just included her, she'd open up. Maybe she'd stop looking like she was about to disappear. But Lena didn't want my help. She wanted my place. It started small. She'd wear my clothes and deny it, even when the sleeves were still warm. She'd take my books and return them ruined. Water damage, pages missing, covers torn. One day she broke my headphones and told my mom I had left them on the floor. I hadn't. I never left anything on the floor. I was not organized, the kind of kid teachers liked. Lena wasn't. Still, my parents brushed it off. She's adjusting, my mom would say. Don't take it personally. So I didn't. Not at first, but then came the science fair. I had worked on my project for months, gene editing and CRISPR, a future of ethical science. My biology teacher called it college level. I spent sleepless nights testing plant mutations, building a model genome, designing my display board with precision. When I won first place, regionals no less, I was ecstatic. It was the first time I felt like maybe, just maybe, I was going to make it out of our tiny town. My parents smiled. Lena didn't. She stared at me with this cold, unreadable expression as I held the trophy. I thought maybe she was jealous. I thought maybe she'd say congrats in her own weird, quiet way. Instead, she waited until we got home. While my parents unpacked groceries downstairs, I put the trophy on my desk. I turned around to tell her something, I don't even remember what, and that's when it happened. She picked it up, said, "You don't deserve this," and hurled it straight at my face. It hit me on the cheekbone, left a purple welt that lasted a week. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stood there as if daring me to tell someone. I ran to my mom, still holding my face in my hands, but all she said was, "Maybe you shouldn't have celebrated so loudly. You know how sensitive Lena is." That's when I knew. I wasn't the daughter anymore. I was the warning label. From that day forward, Lena didn't just live in my house. She lived in my shadow, my things, my life. Every good grade I got made her angrier. Every time I got praised, she got cold and violent. But it wasn't just her. It was the way my mom always found a way to justify it. She's been through so much. You're stronger. She needs support. Don't flaunt your success. I started hiding my achievements, literally. I stuffed my test papers in drawers. I told my science teacher not to announce my grades out loud. I deleted my Instagram account because Lena once saw a post of me holding an award and broke my laptop screen with a curling iron. She said it was an accident. My mom said, accidents happen. I stopped asking for help. I stopped telling anyone what was really happening in our house. I stopped believing that things would ever go back to how they were before Lena arrived. By the time Lena had been in our house for a year, she'd mastered it. Not the physical space, though she knew exactly which floorboards creaked and which rooms didn't have working locks, but the people. My mom, my dad, me. She studied us like we were her next test subjects. She learned how to manipulate moods, bend arguments, and twist sympathy around her finger like thread. And my parents let her. At school, I was the smart one, the nice girl, the volunteer tutor. But at home, I was the villain. My successes were threats. My boundaries were cruelty. If Lena was quiet for a day, I'd be accused of being too hard on her. If she lashed out, they'd ask me, "What did you say to upset her?" I stopped answering. It wasn't worth it. I started eating in my room, even though the door didn't lock. I'd sleep with one ear open, listening for footsteps at 3 a.m., afraid she'd be in the mood to rearrange my belongings again. Her favorite trick was stealing my flash drives, just enough to delay school projects, or she'd copy over them with empty files. She once deleted my entire AP biology final paper. I cried for 2 hours and rewrote it from scratch. When I told my mom what happened, she just sighed and said, "Try saving things in multiple places next time. You know how unstable Lena is." Unstable. That word became the excuse for everything. Lena wasn't grounded when she scratched my violin. She wasn't disciplined when she ripped a hole in my college hoodie because it looked expensive. Instead, my mom comforted her, told her that jealousy was natural and that she was still learning what a real family looks like. Meanwhile, I was learning what betrayal felt like. I was 16 when Lena first threatened to ruin my future. It was late at night, and I was sitting at the kitchen table working on college applications. She walked in, said nothing, just stood there watching me type. I didn't look up. I'd learned by then not to make eye contact. Then she whispered, "You really think they're going to send you away and leave me here?" I froze. "I'll make sure they don't," she added. "You'll see." She walked out after that, but I could have finished my application. I just stared at the blinking cursor. That night, I started locking my phone and computer with long passcodes. I changed my email password every week. I stopped telling my parents about what schools I was applying to. Lena couldn't destroy what she didn't know about. But of course, she always found ways. One day, I came home from school and found my college brochures soaked in the bathtub. She said the faucet had leaked. I didn't even bother arguing. I just threw them out and downloaded digital versions. Later that week, I found her in my room, sitting on my bed. She was flipping through my yearbook and highlighting faces. I asked her what she was doing. She just smiled and said, "Just figuring out who I need to replace." That night, I pushed my dresser in front of my door before sleeping. And my parents? They said I was being paranoid. "She's trying," my mom insisted. "She just doesn't know how to show it." Yeah, well, Lena showed it with destruction. With silence that felt sharp enough to slice, with long calculating stares that made me want to disappear inside my own skin. But the worst part wasn't Lena, it was my mom. She treated Lena like a wounded bird and me like the predator. Everything Lena did was filtered through the lens of "she's healing." Everything I did was analyzed under "why are you making things harder?" At family dinners, Lena would sit next to my mom, all doe-eyed and fragile, while I sat across from them, invisible. If I got an A, my mom would say, "Let's not talk about grades at the table." If I got a scholarship email, she'd reply with, "Maybe wait to share that." Lena's been feeling left out lately. I wanted to scream, but screaming just gave them more reason to think I was unstable. So I went quiet. I perfected the art of emotional vanishing. I stopped expecting support. I stopped celebrating wins. I stopped being seen because it was safer than being punished for existing. Still, deep down, I hoped Lena would eventually calm down, grow out of it, that something, anything would shift. But it didn't. The house wasn't just Lena's playground. It was her weapon, and I was her favorite target. I got into my dream college on a Tuesday afternoon in April. I remember the way the sunlight hit the acceptance letter, casting shadows on my shaking hands. For the first time in years, I felt seen, not compared, not invisible, not something to be managed around Lena's moods. Just me, chosen, worthy. I cried. Not because I doubted I deserved it, but because I knew what came next. I didn't tell my parents right away. I didn't even celebrate. I hid the letter inside a calculus textbook and buried it under my bed. That night, I lay awake imagining what it might feel like to live in a place Lena had never touched. A dorm room where my things stayed mine. A future she couldn't poison. But I wasn't fast enough. She found the letter 2 days later. She didn't say a word. She just taped it to the fridge with a knife stabbed through the center. My mom found it and yanked it down, hissing, "Lena!" like she was scolding a toddler for spilling juice. I asked her, "Are you going to say anything else?" She looked at me, eyes weary. "You should have told us sooner. You know how she gets." That's when something broke in me. All the buried anger, all the quiet compliance, all the nights I'd stayed silent while Lena ruined pieces of me. I felt it boil to the surface. I walked upstairs to Lena's room, knocked once, and didn't wait for an answer. She was sitting on her bed, smirking like she'd already won. "You don't get to ruin this," I said, my voice shaking. "Not this time." She just tilted her head. "What are you going to do? Tell Mom?" I didn't answer. That weekend, I applied for student housing and paid the deposit myself. I drained half my savings and filled out every loan form I could find. I emailed the university and requested to opt out of family emergency contact info. I stopped playing nice. But Lena wasn't done. In the weeks that followed, she did everything she could to make my life hell. She shredded my class notes, cut them up into tiny squares, and left them like confetti on my desk. She poured shampoo into my backpack. She told my mom I'd called her broken and unwanted, which turned into a family blowout where I had to apologize for emotional abuse. I stopped fighting back. But not because I was giving in. I was planning. I rented a storage unit 2 towns over and started moving my things little by little. Important stuff first: ID, birth certificate, laptop, books. I boxed them up after school and hid them under my bed until I could snag them out on weekends while everyone else was busy pretending we were a normal family. My mom thought I was at tutoring sessions. I was preparing for escape. The lost straw came during finals week. I'd spent all semester building my research paper, medical ethics and the boundaries of consent. It was my best work. I was proud of it. Lena deleted it. Every word. Gone. She broke into my computer and wiped the entire document. I found her in the hallway that night, sitting on the stairs in the dark. She looked up as I passed and whispered, "That's what you get for leaving." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just walked back to my room and wrote a brand new paper from scratch. Took me all night. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. But I got it done. And I aced it. That was the moment I knew I could survive without them. Without her. Without the illusion that things might get better. So I gave my mom the news the next morning. I'm moving out before orientation. She looked up from her coffee, blinked like I'd spoken in another language. With what money? I've got loans, scholarships. I'll figure it out. Her face twisted. And leave Lena behind? She's still struggling. She's always struggling, and I'm always the excuse. That was the first time I saw it. Something like fear in her eyes. Not fear of losing me, fear of losing control. You're being cruel, she said. You'll traumatize her all over again. I smiled. That's not my job. She told me I was selfish, that I didn't understand trauma, that I was throwing away family. But for once, I didn't listen. I wasn't that 15-year-old girl anymore, begging for peace in a house that worshipped chaos. I was done being polite, done making myself smaller so Lena could feel big. I gave my 2 weeks' notice at my part-time job and started pulling 12-hour shifts to save up. I found a cheap apartment near campus. Tiny and dim, but it had locks. Locks I controlled. I signed the lease with shaking hands, and I didn't tell a soul. When moving day came, I left early in the morning. My mom was at yoga. Lena was asleep. I packed what was left, just clothes, some books, a photo of my grandma, and walked out without looking back. I was free, or at least I thought I was. I thought I was free the moment I stepped into my apartment. It was small, barely 400 square feet, but it was mine. The air smelled like new paint and cheap vinyl flooring. I had one window, one lock, and one key, and no Lena. I didn't even unpack right away. I sat on the floor in the middle of the empty space and just breathed. No footsteps, no banging on the door, no forced family dinners where my achievements were turned into offenses, no one watching me to see if I dared to smile at something good in my life. But the silence didn't last. It started with the calls, blocked numbers, unknown on the screen. Always around the same time, just after dark. I didn't answer, but the voicemails piled up. This isn't how you fix a family. Lena's not eating. Do you even care what you're doing to her? Then came the texts from my mother. Long, manipulative monologues typed like sermons. Lena was spiraling. Dad was worried. Mom had spent so much on therapy, only for me to abandon her when she needed me most. I stopped responding. That's when they escalated. I was 1 week into orientation when I got an email from the university's housing office. Someone had called pretending to be me, said I was moving back home due to a family emergency and needed to cancel my housing. They asked for ID. The person hung up. I knew who it was. Then I got a call from my new manager at the student pharmacy. Hey, everything okay at home? Someone just called saying you were having a breakdown, that you shouldn't be working right now. I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was so absurd I didn't know what else to do. That night, I turned my phone off. I shouldn't have, because the next morning I walked into campus for the first official day of classes. And there they were, my mother and Lena, just standing there, in front of the science building, like they belonged there. Lena wore this delicate pink dress she only pulled out when she wanted to look fragile. My mom clutched her purse like it was some kind of weapon, and the moment they saw me, they lit up like actors who had rehearsed every scene of their confrontation. Mia, my mom cried out, loud enough that heads turned. We just want to talk, honey. I didn't stop walking. Lena stepped into my path, blocking the door. Her voice was soft, trembling. Please, I haven't been okay without you. People stared. I felt their eyes on me, judging me, wondering why the girl with the white coat and the loaded backpack looked like she was ready to bolt. I sidestepped them both and slipped inside the building, found a seat in the back of the lecture hall, hands shaking, heart hammering. I didn't go home that night. I stayed with a friend I'd met during orientation, told her only half the story, just enough for her to understand that I needed a place to crash and someone to keep an eye on the door. The next day, campus security called me in. Apparently, my mom had returned and tried to gain access to my class schedule, claimed it was an emergency, claimed she needed to make sure I was safe. They asked if I wanted to file a report. I said no. I wasn't ready, but I changed my number, locked down my social media, warned my professors, and I told my new roommate, Hannah, everything. The sabotage, the poison, the years of psychological warfare. She didn't flinch. She just handed me her pepper spray and said, if they show up again, we call the police. But they didn't show up again. Not for a while. Instead, my mom went nuclear in a quieter way. She started contacting relatives, cousins, old church friends, even my godmother. Everyone I'd ever known started reaching out with the same message. You need to forgive Lena. She's family. No one asked if I was okay. No one asked what Lena had done. They just wanted me back in the system, back in the role I was assigned, the forgiver, the absorber, the one who gave up everything so Lena could feel whole. But I wasn't playing that game anymore. Then came the white coat ceremony, a rite of passage, a moment I'd worked for since sophomore year of high school. And I knew they'd try to ruin it. So I made a plan. I told no one when or where it would be. I posted fake times and a fake location on social media, just in case mom still had spies watching. I emailed the school and asked to be removed from any public lists. I gave security photos of my mom and Lena and told them not to let either one in without a ticket. The morning of the ceremony, I hid my white coat in Hannah's closet, got dressed in the bathroom with the door locked, took a cab to campus instead of my car, entered through the back entrance, Paranoid? Maybe. Necessary? Absolutely. The auditorium was buzzing with families and friends. I could hear laughter, see flashes of camera lights, smell perfume and excitement in the air, and for the first time in years, I stood in a room full of people without scanning for Lena. My name was called. I walked across the stage, accepted the coat, and smiled for the camera. For once, no one screamed that I didn't deserve it. After the ceremony, I checked my phone. 17 missed calls, 5 voicemails, all from my mother. The last one said, "You'll regret this. You've broken your sister's heart." But I didn't regret anything, not even a little. Because for the first time since Lena came into my life, I was no longer surviving around her. I was living beyond her. The weeks after the white coat ceremony was silent. No protests, no pop-ups on campus, no mysterious calls to my job. It felt like the storm had passed, but I didn't trust it. I kept my bag zipped, my phone on silent, my doors double locked. I studied harder than ever, trying to focus on anatomy instead of anxiety. I told myself it was over. Then she showed up. Not Lena, my dad. I came home from class exhausted, ready to collapse on my futon, and there he was, sitting on the floor of the hallway outside my apartment, holding a manila envelope in one hand and a tired smile on his face. "I figured you wouldn't answer if I called," he said quietly. He was right. I opened the door, let him in, sat opposite him on the floor like we were strangers trying to negotiate a treaty. He handed me the envelope. "It's from your mom," he said, "but I wanted to give it to you myself, because I should have stepped in years ago. I see that now." I didn't open it, just stared at him. He looked older than I remembered, like the weight of choosing silence had finally aged him. "She wants to say she's sorry," he added, "but she knows you may never forgive her." "I won't," I said flatly. "Not now. Maybe not ever." He nodded. Then he hesitated, like he was debating whether to say the next thing. "Lena's changing," he said. "She started going to therapy again. Real therapy. Voluntarily. She blocked your mom's number, moved into a trauma recovery group home last week." I didn't speak. "She asked me to tell you she's proud of you." I let out a bitter laugh. "Took her long enough." "I think she's trying," he said, "but she knows it might be too late." I didn't answer. I didn't know what to say. He left shortly after, said he'd stay out of my way unless I needed him. I sat alone in my apartment for a long time that night, holding that envelope. I finally opened it around 2 a.m. It was a letter, 3 pages, from my mother. She detailed all the things she'd ignored, denied, excused. She admitted to weaponizing Lena's trauma, admitted she hadn't protected me, admitted she had let one daughter destroy the other because it was easier than facing the truth. She said she never expected me to forgive her. She just wanted me to know she finally saw it. It was the first honest thing she'd ever given me, but I didn't respond. Not then, not for months. I started my second semester of med school stronger, sharper, the kind of student who answered questions with clarity and confidence. My white coat wasn't just fabric anymore, it was armor. Then one night, just before spring break, I got a text from an unknown number. "Happy birthday, you deserve all good things. L." I stared at it for a long time. I didn't respond, but I didn't delete it either. Later, that spring, I ran into my cousin Eric at the campus bookstore. He looked sheepish the moment he saw me. "Hey, I was part of the group chat," he said. "Back when all that was happening. I'm sorry, we didn't know the whole story." "You didn't ask," I replied. He nodded, accepted that. "For what it's worth, you were right, about all of it." I appreciated it more than I let on. Little by little, the narrative was shifting. The girl they once saw as the heartless sister became something else, a survivor, a boundary setter, someone who dared to leave. By the end of the school year, I was top of my class. I posted the ranking on social media, bold and public, and no one ripped it down. No one poisoned my food. No one screamed that I didn't deserve it. A few old relatives even liked the post. Progress. I didn't go home that summer. I stayed in the city. Took on extra shifts at the hospital. Got sublet near campus and lived off takeout and secondhand furniture. I didn't miss home. But I thought about Lena more than I expected. Not the version who destroyed everything, but the quiet one in the hallway, whispering threats not out of hatred but fear. Fear that if I succeeded, it meant she really had failed. I got another text in July. "I'm still writing. I still remember everything. But I've stopped hating you for being okay. Lena." That one made me cry. Because for the first time, it didn't feel like a manipulation. It felt like truth. When Thanksgiving rolled around, I got a formal invitation from my dad. Just him. No pressure, no tricks. He was hosting it at a friend's house. No Lena, no mom. I didn't reply for days, but eventually I said yes. I brought a bottle of wine, still unsure if it was a terrible idea. He opened the door with a smile that looked more nervous than anything else. We ate, we played cards, we talked. It was awkward and imperfect, but real. Halfway through dessert, he handed me an envelope. "This came for you at the old address," he said. It was a letter from Lena. A single page. "I used to think your light made me look darker, but it didn't. I just hadn't figured out how to turn mine on. You were never the villain. You were the mirror. Thank you for surviving me. I'm sorry." I read it twice, then folded it and put it in my coat pocket. Forgiveness is complicated. So is love. But I don't hate my adopted sister anymore. Not because she earned back my trust, but because I finally stopped needing her apology to reclaim my life. I stopped needing a broken family to tell me I was whole. I built something new, and this time, no one gets to break it.